At 6:19 a.m., the USS Abraham Lincoln is surprised. An E-2 Hawkeye detects 4 approaching ballistic missiles, along with dozens of aerial contacts. Within seconds, the battle group goes on high alert. On the destroyers USS Spruance and USS Michael Murphy, radars identify approximately 30 attack drones flying low at about 185 kilometers per hour. The tactical officer quickly categorizes them. They are cheap drones, but capable of causing critical damage. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. The alarm echoes through the ship. Battle stations, hatches close, crews rush to their positions, and an MH-60 Romeo helicopter takes off armed with Hellfire missiles. At the same time, electronic warfare systems create a false position of the ship to confuse the attackers. In the Spruance, the 127mm Mk-45 cannon comes into play. Firing proximity fuselage projectiles, it doesn't need to hit directly. Just get close. The first aerial explosions already bring down drones, while others are damaged and continue advancing. The pace is intense, about 20 shots per minute, with cycles of just a few seconds. Even so, the drones continue to approach rapidly. The number of contacts begins to drop, 30, 24, 21. But the threat is far from over. 145 kilometers to the east, the Murphy's 127mm gun performs the same procedure. The 50 caliber machine guns engage targets that the gun cannot reach. 7,600 meters above both ships, the Hawkeye updates the ballistic tracking. 4 warheads, now at apogee, beginning their descent. 15 minutes until impact on the Lincoln. The report is sent to all ships in the strike group. Spruance and Murphy record the information and continue shooting down drones. There's nothing more they can do about it now. Spruance reduces the number of contacts to 18 when the youngest officer on duty on deck slows down. Surface contacts heading 085 high speed, 74 kilometers per hour, approaching. IRGC fast vessels, boats of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps advancing from the east. Some adapted as suicide boats, with enough explosives on the bow to breach the hull of a destroyer on impact. The main gun is pointed north, with 18 drones still approaching. The boats are to the east. 1 main battery, 2 vectors, and no simple solution to this problem. The ship lists heavily to port at maximum speed. The goal is to create a wall of turbulent water in the wake. It doesn't sink 15-meter vessels, but it transforms a coordinated attack into scattered chaos. A dozen boats attacking together can overwhelm the defenses. The same dozen attacking one by one becomes just an easy target. Breaking the formation forces them to slow down and reorganize, and that buys time. Time is the only currency the crew has left. The stabilized 25mm Mk-38 gun finds the first target at 2,500 meters, even with the deck tilting 15 degrees, and sweeps with tracers until the engine compartment explodes. The MH-60 Romeo neutralizes the second with a direct Hellfire shot to the hull. The helicopter still has 7 missiles. The other boats disperse to regroup. 145 kilometers to the east, Murphy's radar detects the same threat 30 seconds later. 8 fast boats heading towards 270, coming from shallow waters to the west. Murphy's TAO has 16 drones to the north and 8 boats to the west, and its cannon can only point in one direction. He turns west, prioritizing boats, as a vessel loaded with tons of explosives is the most dangerous target. Take the risk in the northern sector and direct the Mk-38 and 50 caliber machine guns against the drones while the main gun engages the vessels. There is no clean solution. He makes the decision and accepts the consequences. The boats are neutralized in 3 minutes. At that moment, the drones on Murphy drop to 9, all still optically guided, all still approaching, and the cannon points north again. On the Spruance, the boats are already retreating and 8 drones remain. The CIWS system takes over those that pass. 20 millimeters, more than 4,000 shots per minute, fully autonomous. Because at terminal range, there is no time for human authorization. A white dome on the deck rotates toward any threat and simply wipes it out of the sky. It detects, classifies, and fires. Multiple drones enter its range and cease to exist. For about 4 seconds, the crews breathe. Then, the electronic warfare operators break the silence. Vampire, vampire, vampire! The alert comes first on the Spruance, then on the Murphy 11 seconds later. A coastal anti-ship missile battery had been building a passive firing solution for 45 minutes, observing, without emitting signals, accumulating data on the direction and speed of the destroyers without ever exposing itself. He remained in the dark, listening to the ship's own transmissions, reconstructing their movements like a poker player reading signs without revealing his cards, and he chose that exact moment. Both ships had just spent precious minutes battling drones and fast boats. They were never the primary threat. That was just the first phase, designed to drain ammunition, exhaust operators, and point all weapon systems in the wrong direction for what was to come: anti-ship missiles. Nor, the Iranian version of the Chinese C-802, flying close to the sea at an altitude of 5 meters. On its nose, an active radar searches for the destroyers, carrying a 165-kilogram warhead, and they are already in flight even before the TAO fully processes the electronic alert. 4 missiles, minimum altitude. Approaching at almost the speed of sound from the northwest, the geometry is intentional. The launch occurred at the moment of least reaction time and greatest distraction. The Spruance still has 9 drones in the outer zone. The Murphy has 7. Neither can ignore one threat to deal with the other. They need to manage everything at the same time with what ammunition remains. Meanwhile, a third crisis, 4 ballistic warheads tracked by Hawkeye 13 minutes ago, continues descending toward the Lincoln. 13 minutes. None of the destroyers can do anything about it. The Spruance TAO finally activates the VLS system. 3 SM-2 missiles are launched from the forward cells. The SPG-62 fire control illuminators, the radar beams that guide the SM-2s in the final phase, turn northwest and begin to divide their attention between the 4 approaching Noor missiles, like a cat following a laser pointer. Drone sector. The 50 caliber machine guns are all that remain against them. Chaff rockets are fired, creating radar signatures larger than the ship itself, the naval equivalent of setting off a car alarm on the next street to divert attention from your door. The ship lists sharply to starboard at maximum speed, attempting to complicate the final geometry of the Noor missile by presenting the smallest possible radar cross-section. The same sequence on the Murphy. 2 SM-2s launched, illuminators facing northwest, 7 drones now unengaged in the northern sector, except for the Phalanx, which is autonomous and will do what it can. Murphy's electronic warfare bubble has been active since the combat alert and has already diverted several drone trajectories into the empty ocean. But the optically guided drones ignore this and continue advancing against a hull that, at that moment, has all its sophisticated weapons pointed in other directions. 7,600 meters above them, Hawkeye sends another ballistic tracking update to the strike group. 4 warheads, descending, 12 minutes to impact with the Lincoln, Mach 5 and accelerating in the terminal phase. But what neither the Spruance nor the Murphy knew, what no one in their combat centers had been informed of, was that a third American destroyer was silently observing the entire battle. The USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., the group's dedicated ballistic missile defense ship, had been monitoring everything since 6:19 a.m. Their CIC was in absolute silence, not for lack of activity, but because their mission had not yet arrived. The operators monitored each engagement of the two destroyers without saying a word. They preserved ammunition. The Peterson carries SM-3 missiles in addition to the SM-2 and SM-6. The SM-3 is an exo-atmospheric interceptor, meaning it leaves the atmosphere completely to carry out its mission. It's like hitting one bullet with another bullet, except both are traveling at 10 times the speed of sound, and one of them is in space. The interceptor vehicle separates from the rocket in the exosphere and physically collides with the target. If it misses by 1 meter, the warhead hits the Lincoln. TAO had been calculating interception solutions since the first contact in Hawkeye's report. 4 trajectories, 4 SM-3 missiles. He was waiting for the ideal moment. About 160 kilometers to the north, the destroyers are still fighting for survival. Spruance, first Nor missile at 18 kilometers, a flash on the horizon. The illuminator switches to the next target, second at 13 kilometers. The third and fourth follow soon after. None hit the hull. The Spruance remains intact. On the Murphy, the situation is more complicated. 3 SM-2 missiles for 2 Nor missiles. But their illuminators need to divide their time between the targets. The problem is that the SM-2 doesn't see on its own in the final seconds. It relies on the ship's radar beam, like a flashlight guiding a target to another gunner. The Murphy has 3 lanterns for missiles coming from different directions, and each switch creates a blind spot of 400 meters. The first SM-2 hits at 14 kilometers. The second misses its target at one of these intervals when the ship maneuvers abruptly. 2 more SM-2s are launched. They hit their targets at a distance of 10 kilometers. The Murphy remains intact, but although Iran didn't achieve any success, it did achieve something crucial: buying time for the real threat. The ballistic missiles. Within Peterson's CIC, TAO finally has the interception solutions. 3 of the 4 trajectories are perfect. Stable deceleration, predictable arcs. Exactly the scenario for which the Aegis BMD system was designed. The 4th is wrong. Lower trajectory, irregular deceleration, different from the standard of a Shahab 3. On the deck of the Lincoln, the catapult officer moves away from a Super Hornet ready for takeoff. An SM-3 at altitude can't distinguish between an enemy warhead and a fully fueled American fighter. The deck freezes. All aircraft stop. The busiest deck of the 5th Fleet falls silent as it watches smoke rising from a destroyer to the north. 5 SM-3 missiles are launched within seconds. They ascend beyond the atmosphere, where their kinetic interceptors, small, fast, and guided by real-time calculations, collide directly with the targets. 3 warheads are destroyed almost instantly. The 4th missile attempts to deceive the system. It separates into 2 objects. One slows down. It's a decoy. The other continues at maximum speed. The interceptor corrects the trajectory, identifies the real target, and destroys it outside the atmosphere. 4 out of 4 neutralized. With the threat eliminated, the USS Abraham Lincoln launched a counterattack. The Hawkeye had already marked the origin of the launches. Within minutes, 2 pairs of FA-18E Super Hornets take off, accompanied by an EA-18G Growler, which uses electronic warfare to blind enemy radars. Flying low and then climbing to attack, the ATFLIR sensors identify the target. 4 mobile ballistic missile launchers fleeing towards tunnels, capable of repeating the attack the following day. Thermal signatures confirm they had fired recently. Time is of the essence. The vehicles would reach the tunnels in a few minutes. As the pilots prepare for the attack, a new threat emerges. A team with man-pads hidden on the hillside. Without radar warning, a heat-seeking missile is launched directly at the aircraft. The alert comes too late, just a flash rising from the ground. In seconds, the pilot reacts, turns right, and enters a defensive maneuver to avoid impact. Flares are released in sequence. The missile tracks one of them and explodes on the hillside. The wingman abandons the attack, nose up, losing speed and attack position at the same time. And that costs him 90 seconds he doesn't have. When it stabilizes and regains control of the highway, the first two tails have already advanced another 200 meters towards the entrance. The leader checks 4 things in the same second: fuel for 15 useful minutes and declining. Atflir shows the first tail 100 meters from the tunnel entrance. The wingman is still climbing to regain attack altitude with another 60 seconds before returning to action. And a second thermal signature is moving south along the tree line, another team, repositioning along the ridge to block the angle of attack the leader just used. 2 manpads teams in the bush, a single aircraft in attack position, 60 seconds until the wingman returns, 90 seconds before the trucks disappear behind armored doors that will only open on the next deployment order. Dealer 112 returning in 60. The leader does not respond. He's already in attack dive. The 2 tails fill the Atflir's sights. Ground crew visible in infrared, crew running, disconnecting cables. A man already fleeing towards the trees, clearly aware of what would happen if he stayed. The leader fires. 2 GBU-38 rockets are launched, and the fighter jet lightens with weight reduction. The guidance fins deploy. Guided by GPS, approximately 230 kilograms per bomb are carried toward the still-moving trucks. Both detonate almost simultaneously. The valley floor explodes. Secondary fires are breaking out from the destroyed fuel systems. The wingman is already in attack mode. 2 more GBU-38s. Clearance is cleared. Atflir frames the tunnel entrance. Open. Armored doors retracted, empty of everything that should have passed through there. The group turns south, fuel gauges entering the critical range. The Growler maintains the jamming orbit for another 90 seconds before moving away. ALQ-249 continues transmitting until the aircraft are over the Gulf, with nothing else worth interfering with. If you enjoyed this video, leave your comment below, and see you next time.